Welcome to another episode of Monster Men.
Ah!
Ah! Welcome to Monster Men.
Arr.
Hunter Shea and Jack Campisi.
How are you?
We are the Monster Men. So, there's been something on your mind that
Yes.
you wanted to talk about. So this episode is all you, kiddo.
We're going to riff because there's so much to this story that it's going to blow your mind. All right?
I'm prepared.
You know, I think we talk a lot about monsters and we kind of, we'll deal with vampires, but we never talk about a specific monster. That's a singular type of monster. And what I want to talk about now is Mothman.
Mothman. Like Mothman Prophesies. Isn't that the movie?
Yes. Now tell me, what do you know of Mothman? And this will be what I knew up until a little while ago.
I know more about Mothra than I know about Mothman. Mothman sounds like a He-Man villain action figure.
It kind of...
Mothman was one of the guys in The Watchmen.
Right, exactly. And that's literally, until I looked into Mothman, that's what I thought Mothman was. I thought it was just this guy that they saw somewhere in like the Adirondacks somewhere.
Oh, something about red eyes.
Right. Let me tell you, Mothman stems from a year in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is right on the Ohio border, through the Ohio River. It started in November 1966 and went to December 1967. And in that year's time, everything you could think of in the paranormal world occurred at an almost nightly basis in a town of just regular, everybody will say, salt of the earth, normal everyday folks.
When did this happen?
1966 through 1967.
Wow.
If you wanted to read, this is how I really got started into it. I finally picked up John Keel's book, The Mothman Prophesies, which is the Bible of Mothman lore. And John Keel was a reporter who he did a lot of reporting on the war and started to get into UFOs. And at the time, he had been in Kentucky doing a study on big cats. There's always stories of big cats that shouldn't exist.
Andres Galarrago, you're the big cat.
And Big Poppy. So he heard about these UFO stories because what happened is that in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, there were stories of UFOs that were popping up all around the town, where people were seeing strange lights in the sky, strange lights on the ground, strange lights on the water, and he basically went there to investigate this and stayed there for a year investigating this story. If you read the Mothman Prophecies, the Mothman itself is maybe 10% of what went on there.
Really?
There was a case where I think it was November 15th, 1966. There were two married couples, and they were just cruising around, and they saw what they thought was a man with wings. It had a man shape, and it had wings and red glowing eyes, come at their car and actually chase them into town. At points where it was so close that it scraped up this guy's car. They went down, they went to the police, they were frantic about this, they reported it to the police right away. This is a town where everybody was so close and everybody knows everybody, even to this day. They didn't doubt the truth of it. So they took him for it, they went back again, they saw it again, and they were eventually brought to a hospital and treated for trauma. They were in shock from what they saw. This is 4 people. Mothman is associated with, there were UFOs everywhere throughout that town. People were getting, their phones were ringing, they were getting odd clicks and whirring and mechanical sounds on their phones. Within those mechanical sounds would be voices, and voices telling them things that it sounded like people where English was not your first language, and they were trying to tell them about things that hadn't happened. Big Men in Black. Men in Black actually came from this story. Although I've heard different tales that Men in Black actually originated in Connecticut, up around the Bridgeport area in the 60s. But the term Men in Black was actually came about by what happened in Point Pleasant, where there were these strange men in black who would come in a town where if you're wearing all black and they would have this odd kind of features, you really stand out.
Jim Harold's Paranormal podcast had an episode. I don't know if it's one episode that talks about the Mothman.
Yeah.
There's one that talks about Men in Black, too. That's awesome.
Yes.
I don't know if it's the same episode.
It's 2 separate episodes. In fact, I don't really think they touch much on the Men in Black in that podcast.
That Men in Black, Jim Harold Paranormal podcast is the best thing I've ever heard on Men in Black, because all you think of is Will Smith.
Yeah, they pretty much made a joke out of Men in Black, but a lot of the Men in Black are described as having olive skin, sharp features, almost Asian features. And they come, and they would only come to people that had either seen the Mothman or had seen a UFO. They'd ask them odd questions. They said that things like ballpoint pens confounded them. They didn't understand what Jello was.
They're unfrozen caveman lawyer. Your ballpoint pen confuses me. Frightens me.
So there were just many strange things going on in there.
So is there a theory that the Mothman or Mothman is a alien?
There's theories that the Mothman is an alien. There's theories that the Mothman is a being of nature. If you go back, there are actually cave drawings, and there's also Egyptian drawings of creatures that match the Mothman.
So is that where they get the prophecy angle? Like, did somebody foretell of Mothman?
Well, this is where the prophecy starts, because...
Were they butterflies? I mean, just mistaken for moths?
Well, they would say that the official story was that they were this rare type of crane. But people would say, yeah, these cranes are standing 6 to 8 feet high with 10-foot wingspans, and when they flew, they didn't flap their wings. Their wings would just go up, and then they'd rise, and then they'd go. The one consistent thing is that they all had red eyes, and most of the people who saw Mothman never saw a face. It's almost like there's a body, and then there's kind of like this shadowy hump and red eyes.
The Jawa.
Ootiki! There is also poltergeist activity associated. So a lot of the people who saw UFOs, their houses had poltergeist activity that was measured by different paranormal researchers that were descending on the town. So it was a year of strange beasts, cattle mutilations and animal mutilations, Men in Black, poltergeist activity, and UFOs, along with contactees who were talking.
So the Men in Black were some sort of supernatural or alien...
Or government. Nobody knows.
Now, the Richard Gere movie,
right.
I don't even know if I actually saw the whole thing. Richard Gere being in it kind of turned me off.
But Laura Linney's in it, and we said in the previous episode about the exorcism of Emily Rose, she's great, so... Yeah. When I first saw the movie, I didn't like the movie at all. I said, this is a disjointed mess. And then when I read the book, I said, well, it has to be a disjointed mess because they're trying to get a year worth of material in one movie.
So the movie goes along with the book?
It tries to. It doesn't really. But they throw stuff in there that really happened. But to do it justice, you'd have to have like a mini-series.
But it's worth watching.
I watched it again last night in preparation for this episode. Loved the movie the second time around.
Out of 5 moths, how many moths would you give it?
I would give it 3.5 moths, which is good because I'm a hard moth raider.
I'm a death head moth guy because I love Spot Buffalo Bill and the Silence of the Lambs.
But then when I was done, I went on to Netflix and I said, "Oh, what else is there? Eyes of the Mothman." It's a 2.5-hour documentary that I watched late into the night about Point Pleasant.
About how old is it?
It's 4 or 5 years old. Right around there.
Oh, it's
recent. Yeah.
There's got to be like a Monster Quest about that. We got to look that up.
Oh, yeah, there has to be. Leonard Nimoy must be talking about it somewhere.
Oh, you know, the Mothman was not something you heard about on In Search of.
See, the thing is, I was never really interested in Mothman because it sounded kind of hokey and kind of silly. But then when you hear about everything else that happened around Mothman, that...
I'm going to have to read that book as soon as I'm finished with Forest of Shadows.
I'll tell you, that 1 year in Point Pleasant was maybe the highest level of paranormal and strange activity in recorded history.
Now, is there any stuff going on there now, or is it...
No.
It's like Roswell, people just like go there to...
There was this building crescendo of things happening, and then in December of 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed. It was loaded with people who were going between West Virginia and Ohio, and it was just before Christmas time. and one of the eye bolts holding the bridge broke. The whole bridge collapsed. 46 people died. And literally...
Where the hell have I been? I don't know anything about this.
That's what I'm saying. And right after that happened, Mothman was gone. As was all the other activity.
Maybe he lived under the bridge. Squished moth.
There are people who...
He flew too close to the flame.
There are people who say that the Mothman was there to warn them about the coming tragedy, and there were those who say that the Mothman was there and caused the tragedy. It's unknowable. There's no way to know. They do have an annual festival out there if you ever want to go to the Mothman Festival.
We should do that.
Which I think, it's not such a long drive. Maybe we'll do that.
There's so many other places we could go closer, but someday we're going to get to the Mothman Festival. If anybody goes to the Mothman Festival, can you get us something, like a shirt?
Yes, please, and send it. I'll pay you for it. It would just be cool to have an official Mothman Festival
If anybody's got
shirt.
some Mothman scoop, or if you know the Mothman, please contact us.
I'm telling you, though, if you should look more into the Mothman. If you're into the paranormal and you're into monsters, it is a rich vein of information that most of us, it's left untapped.
Well, there's my homework.
There you go. You got a lot to do, brother.
So, go watch the Mothman.